SMALL. Small talk. Small talk. I am absolutely thrilled today to have my guest, good friend, and colleague, Max Brooks. Max is, wow, if you don't know who he is, he is an author, a screenwriter. He is also a card-carrying nerd. Max is really best known for redefining the zombie genre. I mean, he redefined the thing with books like The Zombie Survival Guide and World War Z. And later, though World War Z became a movie with Brad Pitt, I mean, it was crazy. He's also written a World War I graphic novel called The Harlem Hellfighters. He's written Minecraft adventures for young readers. His Bigfoot thriller is called Devolution. It's a fantastic read. And when Max is not writing books, he is a fellow with the Atlantic Council, where he collaborates with military and policy thinkers on the future of warfare. He also works with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Max Brooks, welcome to the podcast.
It is good to be here. Are you still getting the echo?
No, it seems to have gone away, which is fantastic. I love my soundboard.
Yeah, but that's not a victory sound. The victory is we got rid of the echo.
It's true. What kind of?
It's got to be like dun dun dun.
I really have to work on the soundboard. You and I can come up with better sounds. So Max and I were kind of going back and forth. What should we talk about? Because Max is Gen X, and a younger Gen X, I might add, but still Gen X nonetheless. And but had a different Gen X experiences, certainly growing up. A little bit more on the nerdy side, we decided, than maybe me. Yeah.
Oh
yeah. And so he's like, oh yeah. So first of all, let's just to keep sort of set the context here. Let's explain what makes you a nerd. How are we defining nerd today?
I think we define nerd as your back in the day, I hit almost every box except for one. And I'll say that in a minute. Usually a nerd is someone who is not cool, not with it, not plugged into the culture, the zeitgeist.
Check. Yeah.
So like I think the greatest example of that is the In Living Color sketch of Milli Vanilli.
The fact that you know that makes you a nerd, but okay, go ahead.
Well, remember, it's Keenen Ivory Wayans and Damon Wayans as Milli Vanilli, and they go like, so what you have to do is go to the clubs, find the latest, hippest dances. Yeah, but don't do them. So that's, a nerd is someone who's the opposite of someone who is with it, right? So like when we were kids and everybody was wearing, some kids understood when in their crowd you wore, and everybody was wearing a polo shirt or the alligator shirt with the collar turned up, or on the West Coast you had a lot of Maui and Sons, certain hair. This is what we're listening to. This is how we talk. This is how we dress. That's a whole other world than the nerds, whereas what I was into. And the only nerd box I didn't check was because of my dyslexia. I wasn't good in school. Because that's a very common thing for nerds, is they tend to be like, I'm in the physics club, like Anthony Michael Hall in the Breakfast Club.
Yeah. Anthony Michael Hall is the quintessential nerd, like the sort of prototype of an 80s nerd.
Yeah. So like imagine I was Anthony Michael Hall without the good grades.
Yeah.
That would be me.
That was you. So this episode is dedicated to you, because the thing about, not just you, Max, but also to all the nerds out there, and I think there's many of us probably watching this, and the thing is, the nerds kind of took over. Like the Revenge of the Nerds, that's kind of true, because the nerds kind of did take over culture, and they probably always do, but in the case of Gen X, very much took over. Like certainly later, they found their mojo. You found your mojo later, a little bit later in your life, right? Like you were able to channel your nerdness. Tell us people about that. Like you kind of were trying to figure out who you were, what your sweet spot was, and then you became a true nerd and nerded out, and then found a lot of success with that. I don't know if people don't know your story.
I kind of lived for a while I tried to be everything that I wasn't, screenwriter or comedy writer, actor, wherever I thought the world wanted me, and I just wasn't good at it. I mean, there's a scene in the movie The Lonely Guy with Steve Martin where he's trying to write a romance novel and it's just not working. He's tearing up pages and he goes, what the hell do I know about romance? He's like, I'm a lonely guy. All I know is how to eat alone, how to live alone, how to dress like a lonely guy. Just that's what I know. And then suddenly he's like, and he writes The Lonely Guy Guide. And that was kind of what happened to me, was thinking that I should be all these other things that I just sucked at instead of being true to myself.
Yeah. So let's talk.
This is what I'm into. This is who I am. This is what I think about. This is what I can't stop thinking about. Why not just write about this stuff?
I think so many of us don't do that because we want to do what we think would be popular or what would make us money or whatever it is. But you, I mean, at the time you sort of had this realization, you were in a position that was very, like most people would die for. You had a writing gig at Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah, which I sucked at, which I was fired off.
Right. Yeah.
Because I didn't fit in.
Right.
That's a whole other kind of nerd. That's like sort of the comedy nerd, like the snappy back and forth, writer's room. And that's just not who I am. It's not who I was. And I didn't fit in. And rightfully so, I was let go, which I would have fired me.
Right. And then but during that time, and you have told this story before, but for those who haven't heard this story, during that time, you started kind of dabbling in your interest in zombies, right?
No, I had actually already written my zombie book years before.
Okay,
but another thing about being a nerd is you kind of have to have low self-esteem. So I assumed, like, who the hell would want to read this crap? I wrote this purely for me in my spare time, the Zombie Survival Guide.
Yeah.
And it literally was because I was obsessed with George Romero movies. I was obsessed with zombie attacks. And I would actually think about, if there was a real zombie attack, forget Hollywood, forget the bullshit, how would you really survive? And not just the guns and shooting and blowing zombies' heads off. How do you eat? How do you deal with an infection? How do you purify water? When you poo and there's no toilets, where does it go? And how do you make sure that you don't get sick from it? Thinking. And then in the late 90s, I wrote a guide. If you were attacked by zombies, if there was a zombie plague, George Romero, Dawn of the Dead, what would you do? Right. And it sat in a drawer because I'm like, nobody's going to want to read this shit. And then it got out. Yeah. And even then, when it got out, when it was published, even then it was almost a disaster and it almost killed my career because it was marketed wrong. It was marketed as a comedy, right? Like as almost like a parody, and it wasn't a parody. It was real. Yeah, I mean, you can even see, well, because my agent and the marketing department at Crown, they were very much like, look, you're Mel Brooks's kid, you're coming off SNL, you've won an Emmy, so we're going to position you as Mel Brooks Jr. and we're going to position this book as younger Frankenstein. And I said, if you do that, it will be a disaster because the comedy people will expect a comedy book and it's not funny. And the zombie nerds who don't know me yet, my fellow nerds who I've not been introduced to yet, are going to think that I am a Hollywood brat taking a piss on everything that they love. And that's exactly what happened. LA Times wrote a scathing review, rightfully so, about like, why this is the least funny book I've ever read. What the hell is this shit? And the horror nerds in Rue Morgue were like, fuck this guy. Who does he think he is, making fun of us? So then I had to pivot. Yeah. And I had to go to Fangoria, the Better Homes and Gardens for nerds of horror.
Well, but didn't you get on a radio show was it Quiet Riot? Was it what's his name?
It was Dee Snider, Twisted Sister.
Dee Snider, sorry, Twisted Sister. I got to get my nerd references right. So what happened with Dee Snider?
I hit him from a nerd point of view, not from a heavy metal point of view. Okay. I was like, because I knew all the nerd stuff that the metalers might, the headbangers may not have known. Like, I remember Bobcat Goldthwait's, I think it was his HBO comedy special, where Dee Snider is in the audience.
Wow.
And I remember, and I gave a shout out to that. I gave him a shout out to his cameo in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And he tried to bust me. He's like, what song was I singing? And I'm like, Burn in Hell. And he's like, that's right.
He's like, you are a nerd. Right.
Being a nerd is it means you're incredibly obsessive about stuff where most people are interested up to a point, in life. I mean, technically you can be a nerd of anything, but to be a true nerd is when you're so into it, you don't stop. When people go, okay, that's great. Now it's time to move on.
Right. It's almost an OCD type. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100%. Nerds never say the word whatever.
Yeah. That's only cool people like Alicia Silverstone says whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But normal people are into something, whatever it is. And then they go, yeah, this is fun. This is great. And now I got other things to do with my day.
Right.
Nerds are like, no. I am into,
yeah.
Normal people, they go play tennis. They enjoy it. A tennis nerd is like, I need to know exactly how these tennis balls are made. What is the rubber? What is the air pressure inside? Everything.
Do you think nurture versus nature here? Like, what made you a nerd? Because you could have very easily, look, you grew up, you have famous parents, you grew up, in Hollywood for a lot of your life. You went to school with some kids that were probably not too savory. And you could have been Charlie Sheen, and yet you were the opposite of Charlie Sheen. What do you think it was? Nurture, nature, just the way you were.
It's total nature. I was wired. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the kind of thing where 100 million people watched Dawn of the Dead, but how many of them actually sat down and wrote a whole book on what you would do if there were really zombies?
Right. Yeah, it takes a certain type of nerdy.
Yeah, and it's not like I wasn't on deadline. That was a hobby in my spare time, thinking, and you can't stop. This is the thing: is you can't stop.
Did you ever try not to be a nerd? Did you ever see some of the cool popular kids that were not nerds and I want to be like that guy?
Not in high school, but later, like in my 20s, like when I was trying to be a screenwriter, you'd go on meetings and you'd sit opposite, pitch meeting with some douchebag, and you'd be like, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, Scott Bernstein," or whatever their names were, Yeah,
it would probably Scott Bernstein. Let's face it.
Yeah, I mean they're all named Adam or Josh.
We can say that there are a lot of guys in the development office.
Pre-woke, they were all named Adam or Josh.
Yeah, that's true.
And you would try, and I would try to pitch them like, "Hey, yeah, who, and this is not who I am." And I could see, and it never worked. I mean, I remember when I was pitching the Harlem Hellfighters, and I was so passionate. This is a story of African American soldiers in World War I, and the U.S. government set them up to fail because they'd rather have white Germans win than Black Americans win.
Yeah,
and they sabotaged them, and they got out there, and they still came home as the most decorated soldiers in World War I. The first American soldier to win the Croix de Guerre was a black guy, Henry Johnson. Their band leader, James Reese Europe, brought jazz to France, and I'm pitching it. I'm excited. And, what Scott Bernstein was, yeah, all right, yeah, whatever. And as I walk out, I couldn't understand it. And as I walk out, I passed the reserved parking space for the guy who did American Pie.
Right.
Because that was the late 90s. It was like the hottest genre at the time. And I'm like, oh, that's why. I can't even be that. I can only be this.
Well, this ended up not being such a bad thing to be because, all that stuff, it turned out there was an audience for that. And in some ways it's a great message for anybody listening, because I feel like sometimes there's a lot of Substack creators listening here, and they're probably figuring out what's my lane, like what should I be writing about? And they constantly ask me, should I write about what's on my mind? But if you have a specific interest and something you're super passionate about, write about it, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because if you're super passionate about it, you'll be the best at it. You when you're out in the world, you've got to do your best work because you're competing with the human race. So, instead of trying to I mean, now, in all fairness, there are people who are great at copying. There are great writers out there who can look at the marketplace and say, what is the demand? And they can just do it.
Yeah.
And I'm very jealous of that. But if you're someone like me who is you're not a good chameleon, you're not a good copier, you can only be you, then just freaking be you.
It's just like Marlo Thomas said, free to be you and me, which, by the way, your dad is on that record. That's bald as a ping pong ball. You're bald as a ping pong ball. Didn't he say there's some?
Which is funny that you knew this, but you don't know Really Rosie. I busted your balls on this. I mean, a little while ago.
What was Really Rosie?
I was like, how you don't know Really Rosie, and have you ever told your Maurice Sendak story? Mm-hmm.
Oh, we'll probably tell that a little later.
Okay, so the fact that someone took Maurice Sendak stories, I think it was 4 of them, and put them together in a cartoon, and Carole King wrote a whole cartoon musical around that, and it was brilliant. It was Rosie on the block with the Maurice Sendak characters, and they're all waiting for chicken soup. And while they're waiting, all the different characters are telling their story. Like, alligators all around. One was Johnny. It was such a great. I'm sorry, Gen X. We had the best. We had the best. You know why we had the best?
Hearts for that one, baby.
The reason we had the best culture because it wasn't consolidated yet. You could still have crazy outliers.
There was no algorithm telling us what we needed to be and what we liked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about nerds. We had Ralph Bakshi.
See, I'm so not nerdy that I don't even know who that is.
No, because we talked about you're
I'm a cool
you're
nerd.
a nerd, but you're a cool nerd. Like we said, you should have been a Beastie Boy.
I those days I just missed it by a hair.
You could have been a Beastie Boy, whereas I wouldn't even. With me, all right, Ralph Bakshi was a crazy animator. And he made movies where he combined things like rotoscoping, where he actually shot people in real life and then animated around them.
Wow.
And he did Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
He took the first 2 books, he took Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers, put them together, and it was an insane movie. And he got real actors like John Hurt to be in it. And I mean, he did Wizards. He did, there was American Pop. I mean, there was nobody. If you see a Ralph Bakshi movie, you're like, oh yeah, only him,
Right.
only him. We had Rankin Bass, who did The Hobbit. And they had John Huston, the great director, John Huston, as Gandalf. Wow. Orson Bean, our neighbor who since passed away, was Bilbo Baggins. It was amazing. These guys, the Rankin Bass company, also Rankin Bass did all the puppet holiday specials.
Like what? Give me
like Rudolph.
Oh, okay, like those things.
Which people are still referring. They're in cartoons now. I mean, they're in commercials now.
Right. All that stuff. The Mr. Heat Miser. He's Mr. Heat Miser. Yeah.
But the fact that Rankin Bass could experiment with puppets and cartoons, because they were their own little shop. They weren't a division of a bigger corporation.
Right.
You could never get away with that now.
Well, even the Muppets, I guess, are similar, right? It's just until Disney took them over, it was like just a mom and pop.
Oh my God. I mean, I remember little kid watching Sesame Street, and then one night my mom said, "Hey, you like the puppets on Sesame Street? There's a night show now, and we can watch it together because our friend Dom DeLuise is guest starring." That was the first episode of the Muppet Show I saw was Dom DeLuise,
and you were
on the Muppet Show. I mean, I still look to the Muppets for inspiration, like just in life, like Zen guru. There was a great episode where Gonzo is tap dancing in a vat of oatmeal.
Yeah.
And he's singing, "I am putting on my top hat, tying up a white tie, brushing up and he sinks. And Kermit panics. "Oh my God, he's in the oatmeal." And Fozzie runs up and says, Don't worry. We got spoons and milk and brown sugar. We're going to eat our way through to him."
Oh.
And I love that sense of when things are at its darkest. You know,
It strikes me that Jim Henson was probably a tremendous nerd, and so was Frank Oz and these guys that created the Muppets ultimately.
Oh
I
my
don't think you
God.
can create the Muppets and not be a nerd.
And you know, they were the Muppets were miscast initially. So I get it. I wasn't the only guy who didn't fit in on SNL. Neither did Jim Henson.
Oh, wait. Was did they try to put Henson on the Muppets? I mean, the Muppets on
what
this
happened
SNL?
was it all came from a guy named Bernie Brillstein. That
Legendary,
generation.
legendary manager, like,
Yeah, just like gravelly voice,
Yeah.
looked like Santa Claus, big Jew. And he said, I love comedy, but I wasn't funny, so I want to be close to it.
yeah.
And he put together all his clients, like this young Canadian guy, Lorne Michaels. And he was like, all right, and it wasn't going to be a sketch show. SNL was going to be a variety show.
Right.
So he took Lorne Michaels and he took Jim Henson and he put them all together and he said, let's do a show on Saturday night. And the first episode of SNL was not like Kermit the Frog, but it was more like adult Muppets. And it didn't really work out. And Bernie said, don't worry, Jim, I'm going to get you your own show.
Right. And the Muppet Show was born. I think I might prefer the Muppet Show to SNL. Did I just say that out loud? But now that I think about it, I miss it. I mean, all those characters, the old men and it was so brilliant.
It was a brilliant show, and it had real heart.
Yeah.
And there were genuine emotions, and it was about people trying to fit in. Oh my God. And great one-liners. They had a great, I still laugh about the time where they had these sort of 18th century musicians with powdered wigs doing a sketch. And then they come off and Scooter says to Kermit, oh, what do you want me to do with these guys? And Kermit says, oh, well, just take them outside. And he goes, Scooter says, what else? And then Kermit says, lock the door.
I love Kerm. All right, let's talk about, we're on TV here. Let's talk about some 80s TV that was truly nerdy, because your tastes always go pretty nerd. Like, and you know, like, while some people might have been scratching the surface of nerdom, you were going deep. And so what were you watching in the 80s? Like, what was your...
There was a TV show that changed everything. It changed our culture to this day. And I don't know if it gets enough credit in the cool world, Bakshi. But in the nerd world, we all know that there are moments where it's like, oh, like Chuck Berry picking up the guitar.
Yeah.
And the show was called Robotech.
See, I don't even know that show. Does anybody know that show? Give me a heart if you knew that show.
Okay, there's a mainstream genre that all the kids know now called anime. Everybody knows anime, right? All kids, they love anime. Well, when we were kids, anime was very, very, very niche. There were anime shows like Star Blazers and Battle of the Planets, and they were there, but they didn't really break through. Most cartoons were these really stupid, lazy Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Right.
Which I never cared for. I was just sort of like...
Did you not like Magilla Gorilla?
No, I couldn't stand Hanna-Barbera. And I didn't even know why. I mean, right. I couldn't even stand, like, Scooby-Doo. I was like, oh, God, all right, here we go. And then the this, and then the this.
And they pull off the mask, and who is the bad guy? Yeah.
Right.
It's the same formula. Zoinks.
Yeah, it's just lazy.
Right.
So suddenly, here comes a show. And it's about alien invasion, and it's about an alien spacecraft crashes on Earth with all this amazing technology. 20 years later, after it's been refurbished by humans and we've learned all this great, it's called robotechnology, where we have fighter planes that can turn into robots. 20 years later, the aliens show up looking for it. And it's an epic space battle with human drama, with romance, with genuine emotion.
Sounds like anime.
Yeah, with people dying, characters who you've grown to love suddenly die.
What was this like on Saturday morning? You could find this on Saturday.
This was after school. You come home.
Okay, I don't remember this.
You come home after school with the SpaghettiOs, and then whoa! It was like I mean, the best way I can describe it is when the actor Thomas Jane, told me how he felt watching Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I felt like for the first time, my big brother let me hang out with his friends.
Right. Right.
And that's how I felt watching Robotech. It was like, whoa,
That's
I'm
a different
hanging out with the grown-ups.
Right. Am I allowed to be watching this? You kind of watch
Yeah.
it, making sure.
And
you know.
the animation was insane. They did things no one had ever even imagined. So like there's a moment where Rick Hunter, the character, our main fighter pilot guy, he's in a dogfight and he switches to Guardian mode. The legs come down off the fighter plane and the G-forces jerk him forward. And a half second later, the camera jerks forward.
Right.
Like it's a real movie. And that all came from a real outlier, this guy Harmony Gold, who took Japanese shows. There were 3 Japanese shows. He brought them all to America, reanimated them and rewrote them and recut them so they would all be one series. So what we think is like 3 generations of Robotech are actually 3 completely different series.
Crazy. Harmony Gold was the innovator. And then shows.
Harmony Gold,
What do you?
who, by the way, also brought us Shaka Zulu.
Another show I've never heard of.
Shaka Zulu was an epic miniseries, which is cute. This generation thinks they invented multiculturalism. This was a huge miniseries about Shaka Zulu, and it was in the late 80s, and we were all obsessed with it. Oh, my God. But the fact that a guy like Harmony Gold could do a miniseries shot in South Africa, historical, real life, and bring us anime, nobody's allowed to get away with that nowadays.
Right. Right. By the way, it'd probably be called cultural appropriation right now. But
Right.
But tell me about other shows, like what about the live action stuff? Were there any sort of heroes that you had, like MacGyver or like
God, I mean,
Knight Rider?
Okay. Well, yeah, there was Knight Rider, obviously.
Yeah.
There was the A-Team, obviously.
Like, how could I even? Yeah.
I mean,
question.
First of all, I don't know about you, but I would have loved to have been in that pitch room. How do you pitch the A-Team? You're like, okay, all right, so picture this. There's these 4 Vietnam vets. They're accused of a crime, right? And they disappear into America and they become like vigilantes. They like help people. And then of course Scott Bernstein would throw out, what do you mean by like help people? Okay, so let's say there's like a gas station and they're being bullied by the other gas station across the street, and the A-Team helps them out. And halfway through the show, they invent weaponry.
Right.
Oh, what do you mean like invent weaponry? Well, like a cabbage cannon. Okay. And so like who's in the team? Okay. We've got George Papard, who hasn't worked in like 20 years.
Right.
We've got Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. We've got Mr. T, Clubber Lang.
Right.
Who you've just seen, right? And we've got this other guy who's mentally ill, which of course is hilarious.
Yeah, because that was funny in the 80s.
That was super mental illness. The only thing funnier than homosexuality in the 80s was mental illness.
Right. This is not, we're not that proud of that, this part of our legacy. Yeah.
So I don't know how they got that show on the air, but it was a huge hit. But there was another show that hasn't stood the test of time, but nerds still love.
What is that?
And that is called V.
Oh, was that was an alien show, right? An alien takeover.
Alien occupation show.
Yeah, I remember.
Where they show up, they're all peaceful. And then what the brilliance of V is they just start taking over very slowly. Like they show up all peacefully and we think it's all cooperation. And then a few people were like, wait a minute, I noticed the cops are being replaced by aliens. I noticed scientists are starting to disappear bit by bit by bit. And then there is a supposed terrorist attack, which gives the aliens an excuse to impose martial law, where they're like, your governments have asked us to help with security. And it's like, whoa. And then before you know it, you're in a full-blown resist. You are the Maquis. You're the French resistance against them. And there's all these World War II metaphors. There's the old Holocaust survivor, the guy came out of Auschwitz, because there's a moment where some kid is like spray painting over an alien poster, because there's an alien like.
Right.
And that's actually taken from a World War II poster of a Wehrmacht soldier doing the same thing.
Oh,
and he's giving him a mustache and beard. And the old guy goes, no, if you're going to do it, you do it right. And he takes the spray paint and he goes, shh. He says, you understand, for victory. Now go tell your friends. And it was a brilliant show. And it was 2 miniseries.
Right.
Miniseries number 1 was sort of dark and we're sort of setting the tone. Miniseries 2, V, the Final Battle, it's just action. And brilliant. Mark Singer, the Beastmaster, he's a star, is Mike Donovan, and the even cooler guy, Michael Ironside, who's Ham Tyler.
Now, what makes that show so much better than some of the other sort of alien invasion shows? Or like, why is that nerd material?
Because they had really thought it out.
Right. Yeah, you can't pull one over on a nerd, right? Like,
no.
Yeah.
Now, one of the reasons it doesn't stand the test of time is because now you know more about the universe.
Yeah.
Because the idea was, like, there's a moment where Martin, who's an alien, but he's 5th column, he's working with us. He rescues Mike Donovan, and they're in one of the motherships, and he shows him a giant storage facility of water tanks. And he says, it's one of the most valuable, rare commodities in the universe. He goes, unlike most planets, including ours, Earth is blessed with an abundance of it. Now, that's fair, because we didn't understand at the time, or at least the writers didn't understand. There was no internet.
Right.
So it's hard to get this information. They didn't understand that there's way more water on the moons of Jupiter. You know, water is actually pretty common in our, including liquid water.
Wow.
On Europa, there's a whole ocean under a crust of ice. So they didn't understand that. They didn't do their research, but America didn't understand that.
Right.
See, like now, if you'd said that, everybody just goes on their phones and they'd be like, oh, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And people love to, there was no forum back then. Maybe there was, where the nerds, like a Reddit, where they could gather and completely poke holes in the reality of a world.
Yeah.
You have to deal with that now. So I know when you're creating, like when you did World War Z and you're creating, Devolution, you create world. People don't even know that you worked on The Wall as well. That movie, The Wall. Like, you create worlds. The Great Wall. You create. You have to create worlds, and your worlds have to be impenetrable by, like, you have to research. Like, that's a big part of your process, is that you research extensively before you even start writing, right? Like, you want to know who you want to, like, the obsessiveness of you, your OCD personality makes it that you have to know every little detail of that world that you've created.
Yeah, I have to, because I'm that guy.
Yeah.
I come to everything from the point of view of the consumer, thinking, would I want to read this? Mm-hmm. And if I did read it, because I feel like I'm being cheated when somebody doesn't do their due diligence. And like with Zombie Survival Guide, it was a masterclass in defending my thesis. Right. Because when the Zombie Survival Guide first came out, all my fellow nerds, like, they came after me, and I would do these zombie survival lectures, and I would have to do Q&A, and I would really have to defend it. And I would have to, because everybody thought they knew better.
Right.
And I really had to fight them with facts. You know, like a guy would come up to me and say, well, I know how to stop zombies. I'm like, really? How? He goes, napalm. And I'm like, okay, give me the chemical composition of napalm. Where are the raw materials sourced? How are they refined? Where would you have a facility to do that? How would napalm be weaponized? Would it be airdropped? If it's airdropped, what aircraft would you use? Where would the aircraft be based? Where would you get the fuel for the aircraft? Where would you train the pilots? Where would you get the spare parts? When you've answered all those questions, you come see me.
Yeah.
There was one time I was doing a zombie lecture where a guy's like, I've noticed you use a 22. Don't you know that after 100 yards, a 22 doesn't have good skull penetration? And I'm like, that's very valid. Go stand 100 yards away. And he
right.
did. And I said, come at me like a slow, lumbering Romero zombie. And he did. And I said, good night, everybody. And I just walked off the stage.
Right. Right.
So
pretty easy. You have
to have your facts, and you also have to have common sense within the facts.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about music for a minute, because I think nerdy music might be misunderstood. Like, you know, as a sort of non-nerd, and I guess I'm, like you said, I'm a cool nerd, whatever that means. I'll take it as a compliment.
Yeah, you are a cool, because here's the thing. You come off as sort of, you know, a nebbishy, you know, nerdy Jewy guy, but you are locked in. You know what? You're my cool friend. I always tell you this.
I know.
Even now.
It's true. I definitely have my finger on the pulse often, but, you know, and I DJ'd. So I had this kind of like in with my DJing from the time I was in 7th grade, of kind of knowing what was happening in the music scene. But let's talk about music. So like, I would think, like, from the outside looking in, I would think like, oh, like a nerdy band from the 80s would be Devo, right? Because they're so, but you and I watched that Devo documentary together.
I don't know what a nerdy band is. Yeah.
And we were like, they were kind of pretentious, actually. No offense. They're probably watching. Sorry, Deve. Sorry, Mr. Devo. But what music were you watching, like listening to, like back?
I have admittedly the worst taste in music, and I don't care. That's another thing about nerds is we don't, you know, like, so much of the high school experience in the 80s was you didn't even know what you liked. You knew what other people liked, so you would listen to what they listened to.
Right.
So you could fit in. It was all about fitting in. Whereas a nerd, you hear a song on the radio, and then, you know, you try to tape it.
Yeah, the record button and the pause button. Like,
Yeah, I mean, part of being a nerd was setting your record on your tape recorder and then going to school, trying to buy like the 120-minute tapes, you know, those long
so it
tapes.
could be very long. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you would just press record, and then you would go to school, and you'd come home and you'd listen to try to figure out it took me 10 years to figure out there was a band called The, and the song I wanted was called Uncertain Smile. Mm-hmm. I once called K-Rock, and I'm like, listen, the song, and they were like, oh, Jesus, get a life, and they hung up on me.
You're like singing it to them. It goes,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
I was trying to do what you can do with your phone now. But yeah, you would listen back.
There was no Shazam. Yeah.
No, and you try to do that, but I was not cool, and I certainly didn't stick to a genre. Like, one day I would listen to Def Leppard's Animal, and the next day I would listen to Wang Chung, and not even like the popular Wang Chung. I've never liked Everybody Have Fun Tonight. It's not a good song to me. To me is Hypnotize Me.
Right.
Love that.
You're the deep cuts guy. I one of the things I've noticed hanging out with you is, you know, when we got the Alexa and we're telling Alexa what to play, and I'll say, you know, play, you know, Hush Hush, Keep It Down Now Till Tuesday, and you're like, oh, that's not the song I like. I like, you know, not Voices Carry. I like, and then you'll have some other Till Tuesday song that's like the fourth cut on the record that I don't even know, because I don't think I ever heard the entire Till Tuesday canon. I think one difference between nerds is, like, you guys would buy the album and probably listen to the entire album. I would buy like the single, you know? Yeah. But yeah.
Well, I was lucky in that I had a friend, still my friend, who knew music. Mm-hmm. So he was my Shazam. So eventually I would say to him, like, what is this? And he'd be like, oh, that's the Replacements, Alex Chilton. And I'd be like, okay, great. Thank you.
I love
and
that.
I would go to Sam Goody, and there was the tape. But I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know music. I mean, I still don't know music. I remember I put together a mixtape when I was in grad school, when I went to school in Prague, and I'm listening to it, and it had everything on it, from the Tony Bennett song in Goodfellas, to the Primitives, Don't Want Anything to Change. And I remember some guy listening, and he walked by, and goes, that's an eclectic mix. And I'm like, that's what I'm into.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool. Did you watch, by the way, somebody wrote, did you see the V reboot?
No, I haven't seen it, and I should probably get to it because
They said it was terrible, so I don't know.
well, we should say that we had V, and then we had V the Final Battle, then we had V the series, where they tried to sort of run out that rope and add some string to it, as the saying goes. No, I haven't seen it. I'm not into there's so many reboots where I'm just like, God, these poor kids, can we give them something new for a change?
I know. Well, you always try. You create new content, including a book that you have coming out that I'm not even allowed to talk about. But
no.
By the way, let everybody know you're writing this book. It's very everybody's very excited about it. I'm the only friend of yours that doesn't have any idea what it's about. You've told. No idea. I think my wife knows because you're so afraid that I'm going to blab it on a show like this.
Yep, and you will,
and I will.
And you will.
Just give me a hint. But, does it involve vampires? I don't know. Nothing. I'm not allowed to know.
But what I will tell you is when the book comes out, you and I will sit down and we'll do a whole hour talking about the book.
I'm excited about that.
It's taken me 3 years, 1 year of just solid research, another couple of years of writing out every scene and then writing a synopsis, and it's up. I mean, it's a big book. It's a big bastard, 700 pages.
Holy crap! Tolstoy.
And I turned in the second draft, and I'm just waiting for notes on the second draft. Hopefully, the third draft will be the last big draft, and then we can get this thing out.
One thing I think it might be interesting to people is how you've taken what your expertise is in the world and being a writer, and then how you kind of became this other thing. This, I mentioned in the intro that you work with the Atlantic Institute, right? Is that what it's called? The Atlantic Council.
The Brent Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security.
And then the strategic, and because it's interesting how people like you will, you find your real true calling, your real voice, and what you really want to write about. And then it just leads to all these opportunities that you could have never imagined, right? Like if you told 13-year-old Max, oh, by the way, you're gonna be talking and doing lectures at the Atlantic Council and the Strategic and International Studies, like you'd probably be like, what? How did that come about? Like, how did you did, was that a conscious thing that you decided you wanted to be?
No.
Or did you,
oh God, no. After World War Z came out, my personal appearance agent, this guy, by the way, nerd. Yeah. Nerd who believed in me. When Zombie Survival Guide first came out and I was trying to sell it authentically for what it was, I was trying to prove myself. My manager hooked me up with the Greater Talent Network. These are people who have real public speakers, like General Wesley Clark. And I went and I pitched myself to them and I said, I want to do zombie self-defense lectures. As if you didn't know zombies were fake. If you walked in, you'd think, oh, this is a model mugging class. And all of them were like, what? And I remember this one young woman, beautiful young female agent goes, that's kind of geeky. And I said, miss, with all due respect, it's not kind of.
Yeah. This is about as geeky as it gets.
Yeah, it don't get much geekier. And so, of course, the one geeky agent in the back of the room was like, I'll totally roll the dice on this. And he did. And he set me up. And we've been together ever since. So flash forward a few more years, World War Z comes out. He calls me up. He says, you've been invited to speak at the United States Naval War College. Yeah. Which is not Annapolis. That's the academy. The academy is when you're a young 18-year-old civilian and you go to Navy college to become a naval officer. This is grad school. The Naval War College is you've been in the Navy for 20 years. You've commanded ships. You know what you're doing. And now you want to get on the track to become an admiral.
Right.
So this is the grad school. And Admiral Wisecup asked me to come speak. And I was like,
about what?
Yeah. I'm like, about what? And he said, World War Z, you have outlined exactly how interconnected this world is. And I want you to talk about that. And I want you to talk about how disasters really unfold.
Right.
And how they affect every facet of our society. Because it was a very specific time. It was the height of the Iraq War. And it was where we really didn't understand the nature of warfare outside the kinetic zone. And what I mean is the military, the government was so focused on the bullets and bombs that they weren't connecting it to the economics. They weren't connecting it to the culture, to intelligence, to information warfare, just all these different things. And they wanted me to come and speak about it.
Interesting. I mean, we hear about, sometimes people hire Hollywood screenwriters to sort of give worst case scenarios and sort of imagine, right?
Yeah, that was completely different.
That was different.
Well, because in World War Z, even though the zombies were fake, the solutions were real.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I always come from. I'm like, I don't want to do a Deus Ex Machina. I don't want to have some brilliant scientist who's like, I've invented, the Lazominator, and the Lazominator will kill the king zombie. I don't do that. I'm just like, how would real countries, given what we really have, solve this crisis? And that was my first jumping off point. I did well enough to be invited back, and World War Z became the first required reading book at the Presidential Reading Club at the Naval War College. And then from there, I was invited to speak at some other military forums. And then I was invited to be on the Atlantic Council and then a few other think tanks. And then now I'm just in that world.
And you love that world.
Yeah, I actually just got back from the Naval War College. I just did another lecture there. I was the keynote speaker for the Future Warfighting Symposium, which is like, what's future warfare going to look like? And it was my job to sort of rally everyone and put it in context. What does change mean?
Right.
How are we going to adapt to a world where the old rules just don't apply?
So cool how you were able to parlay one expertise into this kind of seemingly, imaginary world into the real world. It's very cool, and I think it's a good example for everybody about how, like, you never know where your career is going to go, but you have to put it out there. You have to take the first step and just do what feels true and real to you. And who knows how people are going to take it. Like, who knew that an admiral would read World War Z and say, I got to have this guy speak to my colleagues, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Who? What?
I know.
I think also part of being a nerd is it gets you comfortable with being ridiculed.
Mm.
I think when you're cool, if you spent your formative years being cool, if your success is tied to your social standing, in your formative years, I think that's hard to break with.
Yeah.
I think when you're used to being laughed at and made fun of and derided as we nerds are when we're young, I think it lets us be braver. Yeah. Certainly with me, where it's like, oh, you're going to put something out there, people are going to make fun of you. I'm like, so yeah, welcome to my life.
It strikes me that most of the super creative people that we admire, filmmakers, musicians, even, CEOs of companies tend to be quite nerdy, because there has to be a certain level of just not giving a shit what other people think. Like I
think you have to. I think when you're a nerd, it doesn't matter. But like I said, I think if you're used to, when you're young, walking into a room and everyone going, hey, yo, there he is, hey, that's so powerful and so sexy. How do you break from that? How do you stop chasing that the rest of your life? When you're like me and you walk in a room, everyone's like, oh God, this guy's here. It's like, okay, great. I don't have to worry about you liking me because I don't know what that feels like.
Yeah. Right. In closing, let's talk a little bit about Gen X. You are a Gen Xer. The New York Times recently said that might be the greatest generation. Now, your dad, I think, really is from the greatest generation.
Yeah, you're not the greatest. Oh God, no. You're not the greatest generation.
How are we compared to other generations? What do you like about us? Do you like anything about us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think our greatest sin is not preparing future generations for crisis.
Yeah.
I think we grew up, I think we're having the roughest time. Mm-hmm. I think we grew up in a time of, unless you were black in the inner city. Right. If you were white and you grew up in the suburbs, life was pretty darn good. And also we grew up in a time of unprecedented peace and unprecedented prosperity. And I don't think we really understood that that's not normal. Because even the baby boomers, you know, life was way good for them, but they still had to worry about going to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
When they had race riots, like when they had riots, they had real riots. You know, they weren't like, oh, the cops are using rubber bullets. It's like, no, the cops are using live ammo, and there's the National Guard, and there's tanks on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, they shoot people on sites. Like, you look at some of the riots that baby boomers had to deal with, please. You look at some of the political violence, we're like, oh my God, there's political violence. It's like, yeah, remember the 60s? But we didn't have that. We didn't grow up in a time where politicians had a good chance of being shot. And that was just normal.
Right.
And I think we thought that we were normal instead of understanding we were in a very unusual bubble.
Right.
And I think we didn't prep our kids. We didn't say to our kids, like, listen, I'm going to have to toughen you up, and I'm sorry, and you're going to suffer, and I'm going to suffer watching you suffer. But life can get hard. Life can get difficult, and there's going to be real bumps in the road, and there's going to be real crises, and I'm going to have to teach you the difference between just a bump in a road and a genuine crisis.
Well, but it's hard for us, because it isn't really our experience so much. You know,
right.
I mean, if you grew up like our parents grew up during the Vietnam War, et cetera, like they knew, but we didn't like really grow up during those times. And I actually remember being, as a kid, like a teenager, being kind of jealous of like the hippies of the 60s, right? Like,
yeah.
Wow, that was cool. You got to go to like rallies, and like my parents had all these videos of them. They're hippies in like Central Park going like, yeah, like they were like serious hippies with me in like the stroller. But that wasn't our experience growing up. Like we grew up.
Yeah, my parents were greatest generation.
Yeah.
Like my dad grew up in the Depression. He had his 4 back teeth ripped out because his mother didn't have his immigrant widowed Ukrainian mother didn't have enough money to have them filled.
Right.
You know, that was his childhood. And then he went off to war.
Yeah,
and his
I
3
mean, a lot
brothers.
of people don't know your dad fought in the war. Yeah.
Yeah, real war, not like putting on a show for the troops, like crawling through the snow through a minefield, poking with his bayonet in the frozen earth, hoping that his bayonet would click on a German mine so then he could raise his hand and the sergeant could come and disarm it. Those are the stories I grew up in, all that generation. So, no, Gen X, we're not the greatest generation.
But we do have some redeeming qualities.
Yeah, what are they?
I actually do think that we are, because we grew up in an analog world, and then that we've been very adaptable. You know, like we've had to see a lot of changes in our, you know, look at me, like my career. You know, I grew up as a magazine editor, and then I had to pivot many times to sort of figure out how to survive and feed my family, because when the magazine industry completely imploded. And I think a lot of Gen Xers have had to go through a lot of changes, recessions, and, you know, internet bubble booms. It's a lot of economic stuff that happened to us. And I do think we're extremely adaptable. And so I do think that's actually a good quality that we have. And
well, I think you are. I think you, what have I said to you for years? You are in a unique position to help our fellow Gen Xers adapt, because I've watched you over the years. I've watched you just things just close. You're in a career.
It's just like,
you're
boom.
in a, and it's suddenly just like gone. It's like, well, I've trained to shoe a horse. Oh, and now we have the automobile. I mean, it's like, since I've known you.
It's like, you know, it's probably, this is just coming to me now, but there's a famous story in my family where one of my great grandfathers was in the hat business, and then he at one point had a choice to sell, and he's like, no, people will always wear hats. Men will always wear hats. Well, look what happened.
Yeah.
Men stopped wearing hats, and his business went under, and women stopped wearing hats. So yeah, you just never know, but you have to be able to adapt or die.
Well, I think, like I said, I think we're having the roughest time right now, because our formative years were not crisis. And now it's just crisis after crisis. Technology is changing. Jobs are changing. The nature of work is changing. And we are the sandwich generation right now, because we still have kids who need us, and we have parents who need us. And it's all all on us right now.
It is. It's very, very hard. And we also love sandwiches. I remember eating Steakums. I don't know if you ate as a nerd. Did you eat Steakums as a kid?
No, I don't know what that is.
Maybe that's an East Coast thing. I don't know. Steakums were hearts for anybody that had Steakums. Steakums were you could get them in a box. They were like they were like Philly cheesesteak steaks. And you could fry them up in the pan. It was like very cheap steak, and you would put it on a roll, and it would just be delicious. And you put it in mayonnaise on them. And this Steakums kept me alive in my formative teen years, just because I would come home from school and the Steakums would be in the refrigerator. Anyway, but yeah, we love sandwiches. All right, this is fascinating. Max, I'm going to let you go because we've been talking for an hour, but I love learning about nerds. I love talking to you always. I learn so much. Thank you. I would promote your next new big book, but you won't even tell me what it is, so we won't go there yet. But is there anything, if people want to, people, first of all, you should just go out and buy Max writing because it's fascinating. What are you excited about right now that you're working on, other than your book?
Other than the book, right now it's all the book all the time. I will tell you, in 1 week from now, I'm going to make an announcement
about the book. Once again, my timing is impeccable. I have you on the week before.
I won't reveal too much. All I'm going to reveal is the title and the theme. Okay. So you'll know what it's about. You will know what it's about, and then you and I can go talk about it the next time we hang out.
All right. Well, that's something to look forward to. And Max and I sometimes will go to the shooting range and try out all these new weapons that he has to research for his book, his books. And that's always a lot of fun for me because I'm, as Max says, such a great shot.
You are. You're Johnny Bullseye.
I'm Johnny Bullseye.
You do well, and you're getting better.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to close it out with a music written by my son, Elijah Michael Small, who I'm so excited to see is coming back from his sojourns in London tomorrow. I have not seen him in 5 months. So, Elijah, this one's for you. Max Brooks, thank you for joining the podcast, and thank you, everybody, for joining. We will be back next Friday for another very exciting interview. I won't even tell you who it is. Like Max, I'm going to keep it a mystery because I should probably do more mysteries. That's what nerds are good at, mysteries. All right. So without further ado, I bid you goodbye.